Alright, hello everybody, Shadema519 here. This is the disclaimer for part 2. If you've already seen the disclaimer of part 1, don't worry, it's basically the same thing. For people who skip straight on to this one, I just wanted to tell something real quick. I have 3 parts in this beginner guide, and originally they were all one video. I have now cut them up into multiple pieces, but that means that you'll still have some weird stuff. Like, for example, I start off the guide in part 2, as if it's a direct continuation from part 1, right? Not like a separate video. And the same thing about the ending. I'm gonna end this part 2 off in a way that's basically going to be like as if you're expecting more content to follow. If you want to see what follows after this part, make sure to check out part 2. If you wanted to see what came before this part, make sure to check out part 1. There's a playlist on my YouTube channel. That's about it. I just wanted to explain to you guys why the video might begin and end in a bit of a weird way, seeing as it's its own separate video. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope to see you guys in part 3 as well. I'll be your Shadema519 and enjoy the video. Bye bye. Alright, let's get right into the next segment, which has to do with game modes. Now, there's a few game modes that you can do, and a lot of them give pretty good rewards. So let's get right into it. First things first, we're going to talk about events. These are usually limited, and we can check them out by holding the tab button and going to the left or whatever it is on controller. Or you can press the option button and go to the travel log. Now, if you're new to the game, you're gonna have quite a full list because obviously you have a lot of events, a lot of like endgame game modes, but you will also have obviously the special login stuff from when you're playing, or the rewards you get for the first few ranks, so keep that in mind. Now, in here, you usually get the notification of new big story events that end up happening. Small little events like this one that will give you, I have not done this yet, I need to start doing this, that will give you these little rewards. Sometimes they have limited like cones in them, sometimes they have a free copy of a 4-star on them, which are most of the time relatively easy to get. Most of the time, the stuff that has like the like cone and all that is accessible to everyone and made for every level because it will scale to your world level. So keep that in mind when you're going to do these. I always recommend to do these because they give you a lot of free rewards. Now, you also have this basically in here, which is the character showcase. When you go into these trials, you're able to use the character for a little bit with a pre-given setup against a preset enemy, and you'll be given some rewards for it. Now, the 4-stars give some relatively garbage rewards. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is proper bullshit. You don't really care about any of this. What you do care about, though, is the rewards from these, because you get 20 Stellar Jades for each, and a nice way to use them to see if you like them in the first place. And then you have these 2 things. Now, we're gonna explain these separately. So now you know where to go for events. When you're just starting out, you know where to go for that. Next up, we're going to go into Hall of Memory and Memory of Chaos. Now, when you press your map key, or M on PC, no matter which place you are, you're always able to go to the parlor car. Now, in the parlor car, you have this thing over here. Let's quickly load it in. Now, for those who want to know roughly where it's located, this is the main area right here. That's the staircase where Welt usually rests up there when he spawns in for some reason. I don't know what he likes about that place so much. And you have this messenger here. If you don't have this here, it means you just need to progress more in the main story. That is all it means, and you'll eventually get it. Right, now you have the Forgotten Hall in here. It has a nice little shop where you can get a bunch of meh like codes. They're not really all that good, but you know, they can help you out in the early game and are considered free-to-play options. Now, you also have this shop, which is really new. We're not going to go into what all this does too much, but just to let you know that there is a shop here. Next up, we're going to go into the Forgotten Hall. Now, in the Forgotten Hall, you have a few different things. We're not going to be talking about this one. This one will come later. You'll start off with this. This is Jarilo 5's or Jarilo 6's Hall of Memory. These are a set of stages where you'll be fighting enemies with a team that you can bring. As you can see, the first one is relatively easy, just requiring level 32 characters. And you'll make your way up from here. Now, you get rewards for this. So as you can see, if I go to stage 1 again, you can see some conditions here. So you have beat it within 10 cycles, beat it within at least 14 cycles, which is obviously worse than 10, and no more than 1 character is allowed to go down. Later on, I'm pretty sure it says no characters allowed to go down, but that's it. So once you get those stars, you can get a max of 45 here. You can go in here, you can check how much you get. For every 3 stars that you get a bunch of like credits, and 200 stellar jades, which is a whole lot of rewards. This is a ton of rewards. This never resets. Oh, you also get these things for like starting off. These little things can be used in the shop. But yeah, this never ever resets. Once you've cleared this, once you're done. Now, what I wanted to talk about real quick while we're in here so that you guys can start preparing yourselves is if you click on stage 6, oh, sorry, it's past stage 6. If you click on stage 7, that's odd. Where is it? It should be somewhere in here. Oh, okay, well, there we go. Is it like, where does it get introduced? Okay, and if you look at stage 11, from this place and onwards, you need to start bringing 2 teams of characters, right? Now, this is when you're already at level 55. This is a little bit later for people who are just starting out, but just keep in mind that there will come a point in the game where endgame is going to require, or at least the Hall of Chaos, or the Hall of Memory, or the Memory, whatever that one is, where this specific form of endgame, the Forgotten Hall, is going to require you to bring multiple teams. So yes, while it is good to focus on one team and build that up the most to make sure that you have something to carry you through the game, do note that they eventually ask you to make more diverse different teams to the point where you're able to make 2 full teams that are able to do what they need to do here. It never jumps up to 3 teams, right? As far as we know, it never does. Now, this is about the first world, which is called Jarilo 6. Which is the first world you visit. Then we have another variant of this, which is a lot shorter. It only has 6 stages, which is for the Gen show. This is an area you get to later in the story, and it very quickly asks of you to do 2 teams. It starts off at level 50, which is around what you get to at level 10 in the other one. It's a lot more difficult, but it also gives a lot of rewards. We are hoping that when we get to the next world, we'll get another set of these with a ton of rewards. Now, once again, like I said, once you clear these, they're done. That's all your rewards you're going to get from them, nothing more. Once you 3-star it, there's no reason to go back. However, then we have this, which is the Memory of Chaos, which you unlock after clearing this, after you clear the original Jarilo 6. And what this does is, my goodness me, I haven't actually bothered to do this in a while, but I'll probably pick it up on stream again. These reset every month. Now, the thing to note about these rewards is that you get a lot less stellar jades from this, right? A lot less. You get 60 per 3 stars here instead of 20, instead of 200. But they have introduced some nice quality of life updates. So what we're going to do here is that, let's say, right, like last Memory of Chaos, I made it to 5 and then I stopped. I wasn't really in the mood to do this, but I made it to 5. So next Memory of Chaos, I can start off at 5. Oh, I need to stop clicking on this in accident. You can start off on 5. You don't need to do all of these. If you beat 5, oh my god. If you beat number 5, or in my case, I just quickly did 4 because I just wanted to auto for some rewards. If you beat 1 at 3 stars, every previous one is also instantly beaten at 3 star. So let's say that you beat all the way here until, I'm pretty sure there's like a lock on it or something, but that is basically the quality of life that we've been given, which saves a ton of time. So we're very, very grateful for that. I just wanted to mention that for people because it is something we got really, really recently. Now, that is basically all of this done. There's one more thing I need to mention. Memory Turbulence. Now, what is this? If you click on it, it is a special buff. And here it says, after an ally breaks an enemy's weakness, it doesn't actually matter what the buff says right now. But this is a buff that is active for you or a gimmick throughout the entirety of Memory of Chaos. Every time Memory of Chaos resets, which you see right here is every like patch. So we have 31 days left before 2.1 arrives. They give you a new buff. This usually makes it easier if you have pulled the new units with their new mechanics, right? To get quicker clears. But it is very important to keep in mind because it can make your experience a lot more favorable, I guess, and it can make the Memory of Chaos a lot more easy. If you are actually able to take advantage of this. And I'm sure people who have been watching YouTube videos or discussing with their friends have heard the term Memory of Chaos or MOC countless times. This is basically what it is. Now we have one more thing, endgame related, and that is, I'm already here, but for you guys I'm going to do this again. If you go from the places you can visit to Herda Space Station, and then go to the base, to the Master Control Zone, you go here on the bottom left, teleport. in here, right, you can also go through the door, but in here, you have this thing called the Simulated Universe. You'll unlock this through story as well. If you don't have this, like I said, just go through story. Herda will eventually call you. You're not forced to do it, but if Herda calls you about the Simulated Universe, I highly recommend to go and check it out. So let's enter it real quick and show you guys what it's about. Now, I have a whole video, an hour-long video about something related to this, but let's just get this done really short, right? These are a bunch of worlds. As currently we have like, I think 6. Yeah, 6. No, we have 8. Yeah, 8. And now what do they do? You go into them and, well, okay, let's not take the first one. The first one is a tutorial world. Let's take the first. Okay, 2 is also a tutorial world. Let's take the first proper world, which is 3. You have a bunch of difficulties you can go through, right? You can see which one works best for you. You have a ton of these first time clear rewards. You have jades, you have these tickets for the standard banner, which we spoke of earlier in the video, and you have these Herda bonds. We'll show you what they do in a second. But the most important thing is these relic pieces. Now, since we're here, we're going to be talking a little bit about relics, and we're going to be talking about them more later on. Now, what are relics, right? If I go to my Sela, and I go to my relics, you can see I have some equipment on her. These give her additional stats. I'm getting a lot of stats here just from the relics itself. Now, I'm not going to go into what these stats do, but I am going to talk about pieces. So the ones on the outer layer are sets, and the ones on the inner layers are sets. If I... Oh, wait, hold up. Sorry. The ones on the outer... Sorry, a little bit of a cut there. The ones on the outer layer are sets, and the ones on the inner layer are sets. So here we can see, since I have 4 pieces of the same set, you can see they all look kind of similar. I'm getting a boost from it. A little bit of damage, ignoring enemy's defense, ignoring more enemy defense, very nice. These 2 on the inside also give me a boost. They are separate from the ones on the outside. And they give me some crit rate, and if my crit rate reaches a certain percent, my ultimate and follow-up attacks do more damage. Don't worry about that too much, but what's important to note is if you have multiple relics of the same set, they give you additional bonuses for just having them. It doesn't matter what kind of abilities they have on them. Now, these 4, we'll get into those later because you can farm them. But these 2 on the inside, the only way to get them is here through the Simulated Universe. And every world from 3 and onwards has different sets. For example, this one gives you one that gives you a faster ult charge. And enemies who have the same elements. So let's see if 2 quantum units do more damage, that kind of stuff. Also another one that gives you more damage based on your speed. Bunch of stuff like that. But that's basically what the use is for these places. Right, you farm this here, well, first of all for the initial rewards, and then for the relics. Let's go through the rest of this UI real quick, right? So we have Herda's store right here. Now, I showed you this earlier, but you can get these Herda's bonds, right? Through first clears, there's another way to get them, I'll show you in a second. And you can buy these 5-star Lycons that are all very, or well, most of them are very strong. These 2 here are for hunt and for what are they called? Destruction. They're really good. This one for Nihility seems pretty good from what I've been seeing from people. People have been telling me that's pretty good and works out on some characters. And this one is just a nice one for Preservation, which is characters that give a lot of shields. You see here, if the wearer is attacked and has no shield, they gain a shield. That kind of stuff. Very nice. Then you have these Composer Custom Made. So what are these? You can have duplicates, right, of these and feed them into each other. So the more copies of the same Lycon you feed into each other, the stronger the passive is. They didn't want to give us multiple copies of the same card, which makes sense because they're really strong. So you can exchange these to upgrade these ones instead of getting multiple copies. Of course, you could also just spend them on standard banner summons, but I don't recommend that until you're able to max all of these out, because the standard banner does not really give you new units, but these cards here can really help you boost up your new units. Now, if I'm going a bit faster. If we go underneath the Herda store, we have the ability tree, which you'll slowly be able to fill this every time you clear or you do some stuff in the Simulated Universe. You end up getting points, and you can use these points to get like all these upgrades right here that give you more boosts and more boosts and more boosts and more crit damage and all this kind of stuff, right? and they will really help you out. So if you are stuck in Simulator Universe and you feel like you're on the edge of really being able to beat it, and you can't farm more, or you can't for some reason upgrade your cards more or whatever, try to do some lower difficulty ones, rank up some points, and try to see if you can max this out or not. Because these things can be very big boosts early on. Now, I'm not going to be talking about some of the unique combat mechanics, because you can get all of that in the tutorial. But another thing here is your weekly bonus. You can also find this all in the tutorial, but I want to give a bit more insight on the stuff that like might matter for people who haven't tried the game yet. As you can see, we have these little circles. Don't worry about them. They are basically, you can exchange them for the relics we were talking about earlier, that the two-piece thingies. Next up, we have Stellar Jades. A very good amount. You get like 225. You get a single standard summon pass. You get some nice XP materials, and of course a single Herdus bond that you can save up and use in Herdus shop. These reset, like I said, every single week. Last off, we have the index. I won't be talking about this too much, but basically you can acquire stuff in the Simulated Universe. Every time you acquire something for the first time, you get some rewards for it. Okay, well, not here. You get some rewards for it, a few Stellar Jades here and there, right? So keep that in mind and try to, if you really want to get some Stellar Jades, this is a very quick and easy way to do it that costs, might I add, no stamina at all to use. Last off, we have Swarm Disaster. Now, what is Swarm Disaster? Swarm Disaster is, I have not done this a whole lot. For people who haven't noticed, I have not played this mode a whole yet. I am planning on getting more into it though. It's a more endgame, just like how Memory of Chaos is like a more difficult version of Hall of Memory. You could see this like the same way. This is a lot more difficult. There's a lot more mechanics to it. Way more than I could probably ever fully explain. You have Swarm Disaster here. You have Golden Gears, which just got introduced. Don't worry about this. You're not going to be able to clear this early on yet. But as you get further into the story and able to work up your units more, you can basically give this a shot. It's just a more difficult version with more rules. Alright, so those are all the game modes that I think you should know about as of right now. I hope I'm not missing one. I highly recommend checking these out. I showed you guys how they go in difficulty. So hopefully you're able to get a good amount of Stellar Jades from them, depending on how far you are into the game. Let's go over to the next section. Alright, team building. I'm gonna have to retake this probably 20 times. But anyway, let's go through how I'm gonna handle this. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a team with you guys and show you guys my thought process as I'm building it. Next up, I'm gonna be showing some other teams off to you guys that I actually use, or some gimmick teams so that you know the other concepts of teams you can make besides the main one that I'm showing you right now. Let's get right into it. What is the main team that a lot of people run? A lot of people run Hyper Carry. Now, what does Hyper Carry mean? And Hyper Carry in this game is getting a bit like loose because the game is actually very well designed. So there's a lot of very intelligent people that I know that like doing creative teams and all this stuff. It's really cool to see. But I'm just gonna keep it to the basics. Just keep in mind that look around, talk in the community, especially some play like in the Minato Flash. Minato Flash has a Honkai Star World Discord that I am in as well. You can see a lot of fun and unique ideas floating around in there. I'll try to leave a link to the Discord if I don't forget. So, Hyper Carry, what does this mean? It basically means that you have one big damage dealer and the rest of the team is centered around maximizing that damage and of course keeping the team alive, because if you die it doesn't really matter. So let's get started. I'm going to see, who do I want to put on first? Let's start off with a Seela team. Seela was the first premium 5-star to release, and it's relatively basic to build a team around her. She's a very straightforward, hit the enemy hard and don't die. So let's start with her. She's our main damage dealer. You could put other characters here as well. You could put Dan Hong in here as your main damage dealer. You could. I don't think Hook would work, but that would be funny. You could put Xu Sheng in here as your main damage dealer. You could put I don't know, like maybe even Serval in here as your main damage dealer. You could put her in here as your main damage dealer. A lot of characters. Basically, the character that is made to do big numbers, right? You'll put them in first. Then we're going to need sustain. Now, what is sustain, right? Because this is a term you're gonna hear a lot. Sustain basically means don't die. That's long what it means. How are you going to live? How are you gonna live getting hit? And how are you going to live getting hit even harder? There's two main ways to do this, right? Well, multiple, but let's keep it simple, right? You can either defend your character's HP bar, right? You can either do this with characters like Fu Xuan, who give damage reduction and a bunch of other cool stuff. You can do this with units like Japard, who just give one giant shield to your allies and then needs to recharge for a while because it's this ultimate. But the most common way to do it is a healer. Now, I have been informed that everybody's getting a free links, which I knew everybody's getting a free links, but I have been informed that that event is permanent. The free links, the single free links copy will be for everyone. Lynx is a very good healer. She heals on her skill, she heals on her ultimate cleanses for all allies. She's just very, very strong in that aspect, so we're gonna put her on here. So now we have a character that can make us live. I have other options that I would prefer over Lynx, but I'm just keeping it simple, right? So we have our healer, great. Now, what do we want to do next? Next, we want to maximize Seele, her damage. We want to make sure she does as much damage as often as possible. Now, we're not going to get into skill point positivity, skill point consumption, and all that kind of stuff for now, but we're going to basically boost her. So, we're going to bring Bronya. Bronya is one of Seele's best boosters.
Listen to my orders.
As you can see, they have interactions. Bronya is one of Seele's best supporters. She gives her more crit damage, she gives her more attack, and she is able to give her an extra free turn, which is really good. I'm trying to hold myself back from going very, very deep into the kit and clicking on them and going to details. That is not the point of this. I want to explain conceptually because I also want to show you guys how you can replace it. Now, the last slot, you can do a lot of things here, right? Like, for example, what I would usually recommend is bringing a debuffer, like Silverwolf. She lowers the enemy's defense, and that allows your damage dealer to do more damage. What you could also do is, obviously, another good option is Pela. Alright, Pela is, I think, a more free-to-play option. You don't get a you don't get a free copy, or maybe you do get a free copy. I genuinely don't remember, but she lowers the enemy's defense on her ult, which is really, really good. Makes you do more damage. Now, as an early game player, you might run into an issue, and that issue is you die. Your units are not built enough. You don't want to start farming Velix, you know, it's a pain in the ass. You don't have the stamina left to do a lot of like material grinding. You're really trying to pump everything into your DPS. Fine, right? What you can do is, when you're running into really difficult contests, you can swap like the debuffer, for example, or the buffer, depending on which one is worse. Obviously, in my case, Bronya is very good for Seele, and I wanted that always. But let's say that I didn't have Bronya and it was just Ting Yun here, for example, because Ting Yun Bronya can be swapped out for Ting Yun, for example. She's also a great buffer. But in this case, we would swap out Pela for maybe a Japard, right, or something like that. Now, there is, of course, the scenario where you don't have two healers, right? Either the Lynx event isn't out yet, which could be happening if you're watching this video very early on, and if you are, I appreciate you, thank you very much. But there might be a scenario, like I showed you earlier in Hall of Memory, right, where you need two teams, and you don't have the free Lynx yet. Right? You don't. Or you never ever bothered to level up your Natasha, which is the free healer that you get from the get-go. You never leveled her up. You've always been using Lynx. Now you suddenly need to use two teams, and you cannot be asked to level up your Natasha. Now, another way you can go about this, which is something that people did early on, because for people who don't know, early on in the game, there were only two healers. You had Natasha, and you had Bailu, who is a 5-star from the standard banner, which you can't chase that very easily, especially not without spending a ton of money. You need to get very lucky to get her. So if you didn't have that, what would you do in that scenario, right? Now, I don't recommend this nowadays anymore, but you can do it, and it will probably work. We're going to get rid of these two. What people would do is they would bring this free-to-play combo. They would bring, where is she? They would bring March 7th and Flame MC. Now, to give a real quick explanation on how this works, March can give a shield to allies, and if you have her at max dupe, she heals them as well, but even if you don't, it doesn't matter. She gives a shield to allies, so she can give a shield to Trailblazer. He gives himself a shield, and he afflicts the enemy with taunts, which means that they can only target him. Only target him. That's the whole point of it. So you would basically, it will be a combination of trying to protect him as much as possible, let him eat the hits, and then try to kill the enemy with your strong DPS and their support before your tank dies. That's basically how it works. I still see this being done, not on this team, but on like other teams. I still see this coming up here and there, especially when people are trying to do 4-star only challenges or mostly free-to-play or fully free-to-play challenges. This is a very strong duo in that case. But if you're like early game, you don't have a lot of options for the healings, just know that this is a valid option. Now, I have team built with you guys. I've shown you guys, usually you have a DPS, a buffer, a healer, and a debuffer. You can also bring a shielder instead of a healer. You can do I've forgotten the word for it. Sustain, there you go. Double sustain, you can do it if you really, really need it. Obviously, March here also counters. Right? She counters whenever an ally with a shield gets hit. So that's a bit of extra damage, but this is a way to go about it. Don't build this team. I'm just trying to speak conceptually how you could do it. Could this team work early on? Sure, of course it could. But it's not the type of teams you want to start building towards. Now, let's look at some other teams. This is my main team. Now, a few things to note here. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention something here. Position of team building. You have these 4 spots to put your allies in, but there is a reason why you want to put each of them in those spots. Now, let me explain to you guys why. You have 3 types of attacks that enemies can do against you. Single target, which means that if they target my Bronya, only my Bronya gets hit. You have AoE, which means that the AoE targets my Bronya, everyone gets hit. Scylla gets hit here, March gets hit, MC gets hit, she gets hit, everyone gets hit. Then you have the 3rd type of attack, which you'll probably learn about when you start the game through the tutorial, which is adjacent. Now, what does adjacent mean? Is it hits the target and the target's next to it. So if you attack my Bronya with an adjacent attack, it would hit March, it would hit Trailblazer MC, but not Scylla, because she's not directly next to Bronya. Now, why is this important? Because this can save your life. The Trailblazer MC, right? So your main character, their role is to taunt the enemy so that all attacks land on them. This means that if you put them here, right, adjacent attacks will only hit Bronya. You can, if I put him here in the middle, 2 characters would get hit. If I put him on the side, only 1 character gets hit, right? I can put March here to avoid getting CC'd, so she cannot get stunned or whatever happens if he gets stunned or whatever. If the adjacent attack also stuns. Sure, it's sad that Bronya gets hit, but at least March will be able to apply more shields onto him and keep him alive in the meantime, stop him from taking any more unnecessary damage. And we put our DPS here all the way on the far end because we don't want her to take the least amount of damage possible. If Bronya dies, it is sad, but it is what it is. But Scylla will still be able to carry us through with damage. If Scylla were to die, we don't have the damage to push on through. So it's a simple line of thought here, or like train of thought, but I wanted to explain to you guys because positioning your characters in the right slot can honestly save your run. And people who are doing those 4-star or like free-to-play only challenges, you know how important it can be to put Trailblazer on the side. Just ask any of them that use them, they can explain to you how this can like save a run. Now, obviously, there will be instances where you don't want him on the side, but that's, once again, that is specific scenarios. Right now, I'm just trying to explain to you guys the importance of where you're placing your units. Now, let's get into some of the other teams that I have. No, that's not what I was trying to do. We have here my Scylla Hyper Carry team, which is my Scylla, my Bronya in the middle, my Huahua over there, and my Silver Wolf on the side. Actually, these 2 should be swapped around. These 2 should be swapped around. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't really matter either or. Actually, maybe it's best that Huahua is in the middle. I don't know. But this is my Hyper Carry team for her. Huahua also gives healing on her ultimate as well as energy regen to all allies. Very strong. Silver Wolf is a good debuffer. Bronya is basically Scylla's best partner. Then we have Scylla here murdering everyone. Next up, we have Embedded Lune. He is a very interesting case for those who paid attention earlier on. I'm going to very quickly show this, but his basic attack has multiple stages. And for those who remember, this little icon here shows how many skill points, right, he uses. and he can use up to 3. So in this case, I build a team around him that doesn't take a whole lot of skill points, right? Most of these characters don't need a lot of skill points. They can use like their skill once and they don't need to skill for a few turns, which is basically what he wants so that he can have most of the skill points. Now, there's more to it, but I'm not getting into that. Once again, we're trying to keep it simple, but as you can see, that's something you can also start thinking about. What units take how need skill points how often? Right? Now, next up here, we have a follow-up team, which is... it is what it is. It's a bit rough. Normally, I wouldn't put March here, but I kind of want to do a showcase of her later, so that's why she's here. But these are all characters that do follow-up attacks. So, follow-up attacks are basically attacks that don't require you to do an input the trigger. Directly, of course. So, Hua doesn't have any follow-up. She's just here for heals. She can spawn this little buddy here as a 5th team member, and he will attack on his own at random moments during the turn, which means that I don't have to press anything. He'll just attack anyway. Clara, she has an ability where if she gets hit, or after her ult, if an ally or her gets hit, her big robot friend, Mr. Svarog, will come out, and he will... Oh, well, it doesn't show him here. And he will then do a counter attack against the enemy that attacked him. Once again, does not require me to do any inputs. It's a follow-up attack. March, if an ally on the team with a shield gets hit, she counterattacks the enemy that hit them. So this team is focused around those types of attacks. Topaz is really strong because she supports those types of attacks as well. Those do more damage against an ally she targets. Or puts a debuff on. But yeah, this is like another mechanic. There's no hyper carry here. There is no entire team is based around buffing one character. This is just a mechanic or a gimmick that I build a team around. Now, next up here, okay, look, this is Topaz. Imagine this is Kafka. Y'all know who Kafka is. Don't pretend you don't know who Kafka is. If you don't, just Google Honkai Star Rail Kaf. Actually, don't do that. I just remembered what the community is like. You'll learn Kafka because she's in like the intro of like the beginning tutorial of the game. She's in there in cutscenes, and like even before your main character like is there, even she is in the cutscene. So you'll learn who Kafka is. But just imagine this is her. Now, how Kafka works, this is a damage over time team. I know it says ice, don't worry about it, just it's damage over time. Which is stuff like burn, you have wind shred here, you have electrifying the enemy, I'm pretty sure it's called shock. That kind of stuff you have, which basically means that whenever the enemy takes an action, before they do anything, they take damage because of the damage over time debuffs that are stacked on them. So she'll burn the enemy, he'll put wind debuffs called wind shear on the enemy, and Kafka would inflict shock, and Kafka is basically the glue for the entire team. And what she would do is she's able to do a ton of damage based on the amount of damage over times that are on the enemy. I'm not going to go too deep into how it works, but this is then another type of team. Once again, this isn't one where we're trying to buff a single unit. I wanted to show this because it's very easy to get lost in the mentality of everything needs to be hyper carry, but you have these types of gimmick teams. Last off, I wanted to show off this. This is a free-to-play team, or at the very least a non-5-star required team that I have seen be able to clear Memory of Chaos. There is these very cool videos of people, once again, that's one thing I've always loved in parts of the Genshin or MiHoYo community in general. You have these people who are trying to beat Memory of Chaos or these endgame stages with 4 stars. Now, do note, if you're trying to do this, right, if you're trying to bring only 4 stars or free-to-play units, please remember that the showcases you see are very heavily invested. Right, you need very heavy investment in these units to make them endgame good. But you can go about this, right? You could, instead of this, maybe put down Dunhung, you know, as your DPS. Debuffs enemies with ice, you know, are able to keep the damage off of characters. This could maybe, instead of making this Trailblazer, it could be like, I don't know, like Natasha or something, put March on the side, make her take all the damage, and then she is able to heal up March in case need be. But yeah, you can make these free-to-play teams, it's perfectly fine. If you look up good free-to-play teams, you'll find a lot of stuff. But yeah, that's basically what I have to say about team building. This is going to be a very big part of the video because it is quite the concept to explain. As you get further, oh god, I just started speaking Dutch. If you get further into the game, you'll be able to judge for yourself better how this goes. As we get more unique characters with more unique gimmicks, team building might change as a whole. And maybe by that time, this whole video about these gimmicks and hyper carries are completely out of the window, and we suddenly have this insane overpowered support that can heal, that can support everyone with like 1 billion damage, and everybody and gives you like 1 million skill points, and now everybody is like that character, and then 3 top tier DPS because you have infinite skill points thanks to her, and a ton of healing and whatever. You can just bring triple DPS. You can bring like Dan Heng and Sela together, and like Topaz, and I don't know, right? We can always get some super OP character that shakes up the entire meta. But for now, I think for a good little while, this will be a good starting point for people to work on, and then as you get further into the game, you'll be able to see what the current state of team building meta is. Alright, let's go over to the next. I think these are gonna be the last 2 segments. See you guys there. Hello everybody, here's editing me again, and I wanted to do a general outro for these videos. Now, a few things I wanted to cover in this outro because I think it's important for every part to know about this is, one, I want to talk about where I get my information from, where I hang out and talk to people about Honkai Star Rail, right? So, place where you can get more information, something about leaving comments and having questions, and of course, about the parts in general. Now, the quick thing I wanted to say here is that I wanted to promote 2 main locations. Obviously, I have my own Discord server, right, in the description down below, but there's 2 other Discord servers I want to promote in the description down below, and those are the 2 places where I go to talk Honkai Star Rail, to get advice, to ask questions, or help other people if they have questions. It's basically my hangout spaces for anything Honkai Star Rail related. Now, the first one is also the first one I joined and the first one I spoke in about Honkai Star Rail primarily, and that is my friend AkmalDL, aka Mike's Discord server. A long-term friend of mine. There's a lot of people in there who really know their stuff when it comes to Honkai Star Rail, and I chat in there very, 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 very often. We also have a channel for future content, conversations, and all that, so feel free to come check it out. I'll link it in the description down below. It's AkmalDL's Discord server. The second Discord server is one I joined later and also was created later. That's the main reason why. It is from also my long-term friend Minato Flash. It is his Honkai Star Rail Discord server. He made one dedicated purely to that, and it's one where I'm also very, very active in. There's also a lot of fun people in there that talk about Honkai Star Rail and other stuff. So, if you want to have some nice small communities, or small is a relative term, but you get what I mean, not like the main court, where you're able to find people who love to give you help and advice whenever you're new, and you can be surrounded by other people who play the game. Those are 2 very good places to look. So that's the first thing I wanted to know. The second thing, I made this guide with the intention of being something that I would have found helpful if I was new to the game and trying to figure out how stuff works. Now, I'm sure I have not covered everything, right? There's no way I could have covered everything that the beginner player would like to know. If you have any questions that is not covered in any of the other parts, which you can just see in the title, I assume, what covers what part, or from the introduction of part 1. And you still have questions, feel free to ask it in the description of the parts, right? In the comment section of the parts, I mean, and I will do my best to try to answer as many questions as possible. Maybe other people will be faster than me and answer your questions beforehand. So yeah, there you go. Or of course you can join the earlier mentioned Discords, and they can help you in there as well. Another thing is feedback. If you have any feedback or a difference in opinion to what I stated and what I advise, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to tell me in the comment section if you are willing. Just one thing I want to make clear, please keep it civil, right? I'm not just talking about when it comes to feedback to me, but also asking questions and responding to people who ask questions, or responding to other people who gave feedback. Keep it nice, keep it civil, because I love getting feedback, I love getting constructive criticism, but not when we have to do it in a childish way with snarky remarks and all that. Just tell it the way it is, be nice and polite, and hopefully we're all able to gain something from this. Alright, that's been about it. I hope to see you guys in the other parts, or if this already is the end, I hope to see you guys hopefully in the Discord servers or in the next video that I do. I also stream over on Twitch, so check that out as well. I've been your host, Damon519, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.